some of my testimony? Who in here understands that as a Christian, you don't have one testimony? It's a constant walk with God. And through that walk, you develop an encyclopedia of testimonies. So I have several to share, but I'm only going to share one. I was talking with Pastor Dick, and we were talking about this very same testimony. And he called me later on and says, I want you to speak on Wednesday. When you do it on this day? And I'm like, okay. Now, I've done this testimony in front of a church before, but it was kind of fresh, and it was new hurt. So that kind of makes it a little bit more current. So I'm going to do my best to recall the testimony. I know the majority of it, but I might miss some elements. So let me apologize in advance for that. You know, if you know me or anything about me, I own a business, and in my business I teach and speak for a living. And this gives a whole new meaning of speaking to the choir. Because you're looking at people that understand Christianity and the Bible. Some struggle, some know more. I'm one of the middle people, right? I have Bibles. I read my Bible, but I don't know anything about the Bible, because every time I read the Bible, it talks different, speaks different, means different. It all depends on what you're doing in your life and what's going on. It's wonderful how you can read a verse and it means this. And then you read a verse 2 years later and it means that. That's why they call it the living word, right? So before I get into my story, which, by the way, y'all be getting out of here early tonight. It's not that long of a story. But let me kind of make a couple of points. The older people in here, and by looking around, we have a few, myself included. Y'all remember a guy named Paul Harvey? He used to share his testimony by saying, or his stories by saying, now the rest of the story. You remember that? That was his catchphrase. That was his hook. So I want you to remember that, because I'm going to come back to that. And then I started looking at, why does Pastor want me to share my testimony? I mean, it's my life. It's really no big deal. And this is in the beginning when I first shared it, and I realized God speaks to me, and he speaks to me in a Lamar way. Let me put it that way so I don't do any disservice. He speaks to me like in the side of the truck with me riding by myself. You can ask Catherine, I never have my radio on. I'm talking to God in my head, amongst other things going on. But sometimes I'll look over and he'll just say, really? What are you talking about? Or some kind of response like that, because that's what I respond to. So I'm asking him, I'm in prayer, God, why do they want to hear my story? He said, you're missing the point, kid. This is how he talks to me. Now, I'm not trying to dishonor him. This is what I can understand. He said, this ain't your story, it's my story. You're going to share my story in your life. And hopefully this story will touch other people. So get off your high horse and tell my story. Got it. So I'm going to make another point. In life, we judge by what we see. And if anybody in here is thinking differently, it's not true. When you were young and you were looking for your significant other, you didn't look at that person on the other side of the room and say, boy, that's a great personality. I really want to get to know him. You were attracted to eyes or what have you. That's the truth, right? That's my truth. I look at what I see and I make a determination based on what I see. And everybody in here at some point along, you've done that. For example, if you see a person dressed to the nines, that's an old term for y'all young people, dressed to the nines, meaning you're in the suit, you got all the fancy clothing on, you got the fancy car, you got the mansion on the hill, you think that person is rich or well-to-do or living a blessed life based on what? What you see. You see the other person, the opposite, with the tattered clothing, look like they haven't had a bath in a couple days and they're struggling. You make a determination based off what you see. Feel bad for them. Their life is hard. And the reality is, it could be far from the truth. A lot of times the people with the mansions and the cars and all that, they're in debt and they're struggling. And they're facing financial hardship and issues. And the person that's living the simple life has got the blessed life because they're able to focus on God. They're not chasing things. Now, some people can do both, but oftentimes we make that judgment. Do we not? I do. And I try not to, but I fall short. If I ever showed you my knees, you'd probably turn around in awe because I fall as a Christian so many times that God has to do surgery on them to put me back on my feet. But that's the reality I face. I know I fall short. I try not to. I get on my knees and pray. I do it in moment time, my own time, because I have pride still in my heart. I don't want nobody to see me cry. It shows weakness. And then one day, God talks to me. He says, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. You're not weak. You're strong. Your emotions allows strength. Your arrogance does not allow strength. The minute you quit thinking that everything you're in control of it, the better we'll be. So I started dumbing my life down a little bit and started listening to what God was trying to tell me. And it doesn't bother me anymore that I tear up when things are good or when things are bad. So I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want a response yet. I'm going to ask you a question. If you were walking with your significant other, you plug in who that might be. Husband, grandchild, son, daughter, wife, whoever. And you were walking down the street and you were just having a wonderful time and an evil person came towards you and put a gun to your head and says, you either deny Christ or I will kill this person right in front of you. What would you do? Don't answer. What could you do? See, a lot of times we say things, but can we act upon that? That's where the challenge comes in. So I'm going to try to share, if you would, allow me to, my story. You okay with that? So I own a safety business, and like I mentioned, I train for a living. And I had a local client here in Broussard, Louisiana, and we were doing business together for about 4 years, and they were trying to get me to expand my help to them to all their other locations. They weren't just in Broussard. They had several in a lot of states. About 4 years into it, I got that opportunity. And we had to have some logistical planning and what location I'm going to first and who's available, and all these kind of things pop into the question marks, and we finally made a decision. So I grabbed my other instructor, and we went to Paducah, Kentucky. Their location's pretty small. It's 10 people, give or take. By the way, the first thing we did, me and Guy, when we entered in Kentucky, is do what? You got to eat Kentucky Fried Chicken. You're in Kentucky, for goodness sake. So that's what we did. We stopped at the first Kentucky Fried Chicken to say, this is the original for me. We make it down there, and we introduce ourselves, and this is a Monday. We're staying there all week long. And in the introduction, I meet a guy. I don't mean no disrespect, but I'm going to call him a kid, because to me, most of y'all are kids. But anyway, he's young. His name was Terrell. And by looking at him, you could tell, or you would perceive, he ran the streets. He did the drugging and the thugging and everything in between. He had the gold teeth, the saggy pants. The whole thing that we point to when we see someone we think is doing that. So I'm doing my thing, and Guy's doing his thing, and we're out there trying to do a month or two worth of work in a week. So we're hitting it fast, and we're hitting it hard. Because this is my first time, I got to make my laundry list of things to get accomplished during the year. So Terrell comes out in the warehouse, and he sees me, he says, what you doing, Lamar, making a to-do list? I laughed, and I said, no, I'm making a to-done list, because we're going to get some things done while we're here. And we began our process through the week, and I'm going to, for the lack of time, I'm going to speed a little bit. We're toward the end of the week now. By the way, I met wonderful people there. Once I put my guard down and got to talk to each and every one of them. I found out that they had a variety of personalities, number one, but some really great people. One of them being Terrell. So we're Friday. I'm finished up a little bit early. Guys got some lingering things to do. It's Friday afternoon. I go into the common area, and the common area has a table and some chairs, but it's just basically a room with a table and chairs. So I'm sitting at the table, and I pull out my phone, start looking at my phone. And nobody's in this room, by the way, just me at this time. Terrell walks in, and he goes, "Hey, Lamar, what you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm reading." He said, "Oh, I said, "No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at my phone." He says, "What you doing? You looking at Facebook?" And you know, that's kind of back then. Now it's like Instagram and Pinterest and all, whatever. I'm thinking this happened in 2019. I'm thinking, no, I told Terrell, I'm actually reading my Bible. And I'm still looking at my phone as I'm talking to him. Ultimate sign of disrespect, right? Not looking at him, looking at your phone. Didn't mean it, but I'm into my Bible. And he says, and I hear it clear as day. By the way, God, I just ask you to give people here ears to hear and a heart to open up to. He said, "Oh, God, I used to believe in him." And this is God talking to me. He says, "You need to pay attention." So I put my phone down on the table. "You want to talk about it?" "Nah." You ever get that impression when sometimes people tell you, "No, I don't want to talk about it," but they really want to talk about it? You just got to pull on them a little bit more and harder. That's what I did. I started picking. Finally, he started opening up. Now he's talking to me. He says, "Lamar, I don't know if you know this or not, but I used to run the streets." My head, I'm going, ding, 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 ding. I got it, right? I've got this. He said, "Yeah, I ran the streets." I said, "I kind of understood, but what are you trying to tell me?" He said, "I was bad. I robbed people, did drugs, sold drugs, took advantage of the disabled. You name it, I was in it." I said, "Well, you're not that way anymore, right?" He said, "No, I changed." He said, "I actually fell in love with a young girl." I said, "Well, that's cool." And I'm trying to be gentle in the conversation, but trying to keep him motivated to tell me what's happening. He says, "Yeah, she was 14. Her father was a deacon in the church. She read the Bible all the time. She prayed all the time. The complete polar opposite of me." I said, "Yeah, they say opposites attract, right? But maybe that's what you really want. You were just scared to go get it." He says, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I don't understand why you don't believe if you got a girlfriend who's deacon in the church, daughter. I don't understand." He said, "Well, I got her pregnant at 14. And the father wasn't happy about it." I said, "I can get that." He said it was an embarrassment. She was an embarrassment to him, being that he's a high-ranking official in the church, that this had to come out. I have a famous saying to my grandkids, "You'll be all right." And I told him, "He'll be all right." He said, "No, it's time passed." I said, "Well, tell me what's going on." He says, "Well, we had our daughter, started going to church. I was a member of the worship team, played the tambourine." And I thought for a moment, that's new. I've never really heard a tambourine player in the church, but okay, that sounds great, right? He said, "Yeah, it was nice." I said, "I still don't understand why you don't believe in God." He said, "When my daughter turned 12 years old, she got shot and killed in a drive-by shooting." Just like now, it bothers me. Because part of my other chapter in my book, very similar story. And I said, "Terrell," He said, yeah, so I quit. Me and my wife, we fight all the time. Now they're married, okay? We fight all the time. We barely see each other, talk to each other, do anything together because we can't seem to reconnect. And he said, I left the church, and because the way everybody looked at me in the church. Now, I'm going to get off subject here. Sometimes Christian people are some of the most judgmental people in the world. Let's just be real. We think we're here when we're here. I'm not saying y'all are. I'm saying sometimes Christian people act like that. I said, I get it, Terrell. He said, so I said, well, what made you stop? He said, I asked a question to myself, and nobody can answer. Why would God let my daughter get killed? What kind of God does that? Now, how many times have you heard some similar question back to someone who is a Christian? If there is a God, why does he do these evil things? And I stopped him and said, hold on a minute. I said, this kind of scratches nerves for me. One of the things that bothers me is that Christ sacrificed so much for us. And I didn't know that when I was young. I'm still learning that. And I'm 65 years old. I know the basics, but I don't know to the depths of how much he sacrificed. I can't fathom it. But just to think of the torture he endured for us. So Terrell is telling me, and I can tell he's weeping. I didn't go up and hug him. I didn't do anything. I said, Terrell, there's a reason that I came to Paducah, Kentucky, and it wasn't because of doing the training class here. He says, what do you mean? I said, it was for you and I to meet. You know, God has this map of our lives. He tells us, I know you before, and I know you to the end, and I know every road you're going to take, and this is paraphrasing, obviously. It's not scripture, so please don't judge me on that. But he's telling you, I know it all. I said, so there's a reason that we met today. And I kind of went back and shared my similar story. Not to disgrace his, but just to tell him, I've lived this. I understand these questions. And I said, how is it that Christians often blame God for when things go bad, but when things are good, you take the credit? Why is that so? We don't want to give God the glory when everything's good, because we talk this, look what I did. Look how I made this happen. Boy, ain't I smart. You got to understand that to be faithful to God, you got to do everything. You got to give him praise and glory in the bad times and the easy times. Because he gives it to you all the time. He protects you and loves you and protects you on every second of the day. And 90% of the stuff he does, you don't even realize it. The fact that you didn't have a flat tire coming here or get killed in a car, you don't know who was protecting you. I do, God. Thank you, God, for getting me here safe, because I am a stupid driver. I could get to that on another story. But anyway, back to Terrell. I said, Terrell, I know it's hard to understand this, so I'm going to do my best to help you. We have to understand that God gave you that baby for a reason. That baby, when your wife got pregnant and you went through that little transitional period to get the family back together and go to church, he put that baby in your life for a reason. See, oftentimes Christians think we're born and we die at 100, right? We live this long life and we have no problems along the way. That's y'all's life, right? You never have no problems? It's the complete opposite of that. In fact, most Christians, when they give their life back to God, you struggle more because the enemy wants you. The enemy's trying to take you, distract you. I said, that baby was put in your life, in my heart, I'm feeling this, not for the baby, but to save you, because you on a path. You on a path to being killed or in prison. And God said, let me give you something to straighten you up. And that's a child and a wife that's grounded to me. And together, we will get you back. Meaning the wife and the baby. And that proved true because for that 12 years, you were happy by your own words. You loved your family by your own words. So it was working. Now the question is, knowing that how God suffered for you, gave his only son, by design, had him tortured for you, it bothers you that God took yours. I said, let me tell you a quick story on my mother. I took care of my mother for 11 years. Did things for my mother that no son should ever have to do. And I don't mean 2, 4. You understand the difference? Bathing, cleaning, changing peg tubes, changing diapers, all that kind of stuff. I did that. Me and my wife. And it was a struggle. I fought to keep my mother out of a nursing home. She never abandoned me. My sisters and my brother, I'll just stick her in the home. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. Not as long as I got breath. Because my mother never deserted me, and I'm not deserting my mother. She went into a coma for 6 months. And I stayed at the hospital, with the exception of going, because they forced me to go take a bath, going home and take a bath. I was at the waiting room waiting for my mother to wake up because my mother was the last thing I seen was me. My mother seen was me. And I didn't want her to wake up and see something strange. She came out of the coma. I'm getting off the subject. I'm coming back to Terrell. 11 years into this, the doctor told me, Lamar, your really health has deteriorated. If you want to hold on to your mom and continue to care for her, you got to give her to me for a week. It's called respite care. I'm the director of the nursing home. I'll take care of her. I don't care what you do, just get away from this for a moment. Rejuvenate yourself, come back. Now, I was working from home, thank goodness. This was way before working from home was even common. They brought an IT guy, set up computers, did the whole 9 yards. It was amazing. The day she was put in the nursing home, she had an NBO order, nothing by mouth, nothing by oral technically, but nothing by mouth. I walked into the nursing home. I actually went to work to give them thanks for, thank you, and here I am if y'all need me. And the doctor said, take a break, but it's just not my wire. So I walk into the nursing home and say, hey, I'm here to see Miss Hutchinson. By the way, that's my last name. We don't have a Miss Hutchinson here. I said, you better have a Miss Hutchinson here. Nursing aide comes out from around the corner. She said, I think that's that old lady they put at the end of the hall. She said, let me get someone to help you find it. I said, no, ma'am, I know where the end of the hall is. And I took off. And I walked in and found my mother dead. Her NBO order was plastered on the top of her headboard, and she had a cup with a straw. And she aspirated and died, falling from the mouth. And I'm telling you this story so you can understand where I was with Terrell. Within a second, and I'm not proud of this, but within a second, I cursed God. And I don't mean some little podunk bar. I mean, I was worse than the drunkest sailor you can imagine. Words were flying out of my mouth at a rapid pace like a machine gun. And it seemed like this went on. And it was so bad. I remember a nursing aide coming to the door, but not coming in the room. I fell to my knees. And when I paused to breathe or catch my breath, this is God. He said, you finished? Because I even asked him, where the hell were you? You were supposed to be protecting my mother. Where were you? And the hell word is the nice word. Y'all can plug in what you think I said. He said, you asked me this question, where was I? Here's my answer to you. I'm the same place when I gave you my son to die for you. So don't tell me about torture and pain. Don't tell me about sacrifice. And it was like this, flipped. And I turned around and I said, I'm sorry, God. Thank you, God. Thank you for giving me 11 years with my mother where I have my own memories with her that nobody else can have or touch. They're mine. Thank you, God, for giving me the brain to hold on to this, Lord. And I hope, God, you could forgive me because I want to be able to see my mother again. So you let her know that I loved her. I will forever love her. And thank you for giving her to me as I grew up to be this wretched soul that I feel that I am right now. I went back to Terrell and I told him that kind of story. I said, so I understand what it means to hurt. So when you look at your child, look at her as a blessing. Understand the purpose. You know, one of my favorite verses in the Bible is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans for you. It's not to hurt you, it's to prosper you. And prosper doesn't necessarily mean money. Prosper means to make you better, to encourage you, to lift you, to do the things that God only knows he could do. So we kind of wrap up. Now, I'm going to tell you this part of it now. I didn't realize it then because I am in tune with Terrell. We're looking. I'm not looking at the phone. I'm looking at Terrell. We're eye to eye locked in. But when I said, look, Terrell, I got to get ready to go to the airport. Here's my number. You can call me anytime. And when I got up, the whole room was filled with the 10 people. And they were silent. Sort of like y'all. By the way, thank you very much for being so silent. But that's a joke in case y'all don't know. I left. Traveled home. About 2 weeks later, I'm going to speed up. About 2 weeks later, I get a call on my cell. I don't know the guy, but I recognize the number. It says Kentucky. I pick up the phone. Hey, this is Lamar. Hey, Lamar, it's Terrell. Do you remember me? What are you talking about? Of course I remember you. He said, I wanted to let you know. I thought long and hard about what you said. And I'm starting to go back to church on one Sunday. So I started clapping in my office, and I'm thinking, praise God, man, that's what it's all about, right? He said, I just want to tell you thank you, and I needed someone to speak truth into my life and be harsh to me like you were. I said, well, I didn't mean to be harsh, but sometimes that's what we need. A big kick in the butt. He said, I just wanted you to know. I said, man, Terrell, that's awesome. That's all I can say. Well, I didn't mean to bother this brother. You never bother me. You call me anytime. If you feel that you need to talk to me, vent to me, cry to me, scream at me, I'm your person. And I encourage y'all to have a person. Sometimes it's your significant other, but I encourage you to have a person outside of your spouse or your kid. Someone that you can be open and honest with and not feel like you're going to be judged or perceived as weak. I said, I want to be that person for you because I love you. I really do. We said the rest of our words, hung up the phone. About 2 weeks later, maybe 3, I get a call from the owner of the company. Hey, Lamar. And I'm trying to emulate his talk. I said, yes, sir, it's Dave. I said, hey, Dave, how you doing? I got your bill. Okay. I'm on my phone, so I'm going, what does that mean? You got my bill? Okay, got my bill. He says, I'm not happy. It's quite expensive. I said, Dave, I don't know what to tell you. It's the identical cost of what I do down here in Broussard, except for air flight and hotel and stuff like that. Well, I don't know. We might have to shop out your contract. Okay, sorry you feel that way. He said, oh, by the way, I heard you were preaching. Now, you understand time has passed, right? We're a month and a half, 2 months after the conversation with Terrell, so I'm not even thinking about it at the moment. And I said, yeah, sometimes that happens when I'm teaching classes. They call me the preacher because I kind of stay on point pretty hard. He said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. You were talking about God. And I paused. He says, you there? Yeah, I'm here. You were preaching in Paducah. Oh, you mean Terrell? Yeah, I like Terrell. He's pretty cool. He said, I'm going to ask that you don't do that no more. And my mouth went silent. Now, if you want to know the early Lamar stage, by the way, it might really hurt your feelings. You remember the toy is, well, I think it's still around. You wind it up and the thing pops out? The Jack in the Box? You don't want that Lamar to come out. Keep him in the container. That's where he's good. But old Lamar was like, and I'm wanting to come out. And I go silent. And it felt like I was silent for an hour, but it was probably 30 seconds. He goes, arrogantly, you there? I said, yeah, I'm here. Well, what do you got to say? I said, God's tethering my tongue because old Lamar's wanting to come out right now, and God's saying, oh, Nelly, get back in the box. He said, well, one of the things you've got to agree to is that if you hold on to this contract, you will never talk about Jesus at one of my facilities. So God goes, all yours. That's what he tells me in my head. Go get him. But the name of my company is Bulldog, by the way. You ever had a Bulldog latch on to you? You don't want that. So I said, Dave, let me tell you something. No one, not one single person on earth, not anybody in my family nor my wife can ever stop me from talking about God when the opportunity presents itself for me. In fact, I'm commanded by his word to talk about and spread the glory. You don't have that power over me. Goosebumps. That's why I wore a long sleeve, because my hair starts to stand up. Remember when I told you someone holds a gun? He said, well, we'll just have to see about maybe canceling your contract. And I didn't even say a word. It just went click. And I hung up the phone on him. 3 weeks later, I get a letter. We canceled your contract. Now, I got to tell you, for a small business like me, the impact of that financially was very hard. Maybe for a mega company, it means nothing. But for me, that was 60% of my revenue. Word got out with my staff. They're all like, what are we going to do? And just pray. And some of the people in my company, I only have 4 at the time. Some of the people look at me like, well, that's weird. We lost money. He's going to pray. But I prayed. I said, God, you know the plans. It's not for me to understand it. It's for me to be obedient to it. I just need your help to tell me what to do, because I'm stuck. About a month later goes by. I get a call from a guy that I known in the industry for about 35, then it was about 25 years, now 35 years in the industry. He said, hey, Lamar, we'd like you to come down to Galliano and talk to us about, we want your services to help us. I said, sure, man, glad to do it. He said, we can meet at this time, so the meeting's all set up. I jump in my car and I head down to Galliano. I don't know if you know about Galliano, but there ain't much down there. I mean, it's literally the blink and miss kind of town. Main town is LA1, going down through it, and 308 now with the double wide, but in either case, it's not a very populous type of town. In the heyday, maybe they might have had a little bit more, but not in this era. So I pull up at the building. I'm running 15 minutes early. When I pull up at the building, I'm looking at the building, I'm like, oh my word. They will never be able to do business with me. They are so broke. They don't even have a sign on their door. They got plaster and paper and plastic holding on things with duct tape. Remember I told you about judging? Guilty. I wasted all of my gas. I'm never even going to get my gas money back. I'm just rattling on in my head out there for 5 minutes. And I walk in the door, and there's 6 guys sitting in there. A couple of them are owners. One of the guys who actually called me says, "You're late." No, I'm 10 minutes early. Remember, I was 15, so 10 minutes early. "No, you're late. You were told to be here at whatever time." Go to my email. "No, your email, I don't want to argue, but your email told me this time, so I'm here." "Oh, well, I forgot." Okay. So the meeting's like on a bad foot already, right? So we get to talking, and the conversation is flowing. And Mr. St. Pierre was the main owner, and Mr. St. Pierre ain't no bigger than a minute. Little Cajun guy from down the bayou, Galliano. But nice as can be. In fact, I kind of improperly joked and asked him if he needed me to get him a hand getting on the chair. I just thought that was funny at the time to break the ice, right? But apparently he had a good sense of humor. He said, "No, I know how to jump." So we're talking. 2 hours goes into the conversation, and we're about ready to wrap things up. And God tells me, because it's kind of like this pause, God says, "You need to tell him." I knew exactly what he meant. I said, "Guys, I got to tell you something before we depart. I'd love to help you do business and partner with you in team, because for me, I team with people. Not a service. I team with you." I said, "But you need to understand something about me. I try to be a godly man, and Lord knows more than anybody how much I fail, but I get up and try again. So don't ever ask me to deny Christ, do anything illegal, immoral, unethical, because that won't align with my business." Mr. St. Pierre jumps off that stool, and he goes, "That's it. That's it right there. I want you to sign this guy. I want you to get him on the contract right now. That's what we want." Now, I'm imitating him to the best of my ability, right? But he's got that tick down the bayou tone. And I'm trying to keep my poker face because I want to go, "Yeah, I need this so bad. I need this." But I keep my poker face. And I said, "Well, Mr. St. Pierre, I thank you for giving me the opportunity. See, Dad Lamar, that's what I want. That's what I want. I want God in my business. How do I do this?" I said, "Well, I don't have him in my pocket, but I can tell you what I did. I read my Bible. I prayed. And I pressed in when I didn't understand. It takes time. But eventually, God will get a hold of you. And it'll become easier for you. But it's always going to change on you. So my advice, if you have a Bible, read it. Because it only works if you start turning pages. Other than that, it's a book. And I've got plenty of books. Now for me, I don't read my Bible every day. I'd be lying to you if I did. Sometimes I'll look at my Bible app. But there are times that I got to have the Word of God. There'll be 2 o'clock in the mornings where I'm struggling to get up, and I'll go walk in my office and read my Bible. I don't know. I just flip a page. God tells me where to go. And it might be a verse. It might be a chapter. It might be 5 chapters. I don't know. But I got to have that little sip of water because I'm thirsty. Remember when he says, "I give you living water"? That's what I feel. And it blows my mind. No matter what trouble I'm in or what problems I'm having, whatever I flip to, there's something in there that I find. And that's not me. It's not like I'm pinning the tail on a donkey, mind you. Because I kind of know where I'm looking. But I have to read. And I said, "Mr. St. Pierre, that'll work for you." He goes back to Elizabeth. "Elizabeth, No, sorry. Stephanie, give that man $1,000 raise right now. And I'm like, no, chill. I'm like, oh, I got to get out of here before I blow this deal, right? I said, well, Mr. St. Pierre, thank you very much. And if you ever need anything, here's my cell. He said, oh, we got this, Lamar. Here's where I bring you to. If you look up the word judgment or talk about verses of judgment in the Bible, there's over 37, 38 times where judgment is being used. Different terminologies. Michelle, if you don't mind. This is one that kind of stood out to me. It's 1 Samuel 16:7. Now, it's a long verse, and God is talking with Samuel, and he's telling him, do not look at the appearance or the physical nature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not, I can't see that word, see as man. He doesn't look at the outward appearance. He looks at the heart. So what I feel by this, the reason that speaks to me is that God knows my heart. He doesn't judge me on my issues. He holds me accountable on my issues. He wants me to correct my issues, but he knows your heart. And if your heart is right, God's right. Do you know that company, dollar for dollar, matched what I lost with that other company? This nationwide, multi-service, 700 employee plus company. This little, my judgment, podunk, building, duct tape, broken company matched them dollar for dollar. Now you tell me, if I just stuck by my judgment and I thought about leaving, God said, I know what I got in store for you. Just be obedient to the plan. I hope you understand what I'm trying to get a point across to you. We're all faced with troubles, tragedies. But we have to be faithful. For me, God is the epitome of faithfulness. Think of all the things that you've done in your life to turn away from him, or anger him, or hurt him. And yet, he's like, I'm right here. I'm your boy. Come on. Let me dust you off. My knees are hurting, but I'm going to get you to stand up. You just got to remain faithful. He asks us to do one thing. Give him your heart. That's all he wants. It's our heart. We can overcomplicate it. We can over-spiritualize it. We can read Bibles till we're blue in the face, but all he wants is your heart. He doesn't care about your body. He doesn't care about your building. He cares about your heart. So I hope you understand. Now let me go back to the rest of the story with Terrell. He calls me up after all of that went down. He said, hey, Lamar, it's Terrell. Hey, bud, what's up? I'm sorry. What are you sorry about? That you lost us. I'm not sorry. What? Yeah, don't bother me a bit. How do you say that? Because I got to meet you in the process. And I made a friend in Christ. And we're going to hold each other accountable. Remember what I told you to find a person? That's my person. And I'm his. And through my career, I've got a bunch of those, mainly in the business world. Offshore entities, right? Stuff like that. We'll call each other out of the blue. I'll see a Facebook post that they made, and I'll call them up and give them a little bit of correction, and they do that to me too. Now, trust me, I'm not there. But that's all I'm asking, is give God your heart. You know, testimonies, like I mentioned, are a book. Question is, what's your book like? If you don't have any testimonies, I'd be worried. Because the devil is the master of deception. He'll make you think you're doing everything right. The devil is not scared of anybody that comes to church. The devil's not scared of any choir player or worship team leader. In fact, I'd be willing to challenge you. I think hell would be filled with a lot of them. because all they do is on their sleeve. You got to put them in your heart. And when you have them in your heart, you get to understand what's good, what's not. What he's proud of, what he's not so proud of. What he actually despises, and what he'll correct you on. So before I go, I just want to tell you thank you for giving me the opportunity to share one of my chapters in my testimony. I hope you'll allow me to share more. Because when we share our testimonies as Christians, we encourage each other. We learn from each other. We strengthen each other. And the devil stands no chance. Because we're not going to let him. The minute you go in solitude, the devil's got you where he wants you. And the devil's, like I said, he's a master of deception. And it might not be you he's going against. Maybe it's your family member. Because he knows, the devil knows, because he can't create. He knows what softens your heart or what makes you angry or what ticks you off. So he's going to go after that button. Can't let him. And the one person, and I say person like it's a bad thing, it's not for me, is God. God says, I don't care. I got you. He ain't got no chance. Spit in his face, laugh at him, whatever you want to do, Lamar. I got you. Just give me your heart. So thanks again for allowing me to share my testimony. I hope you enjoyed it.